We've spoken about kind of selecting, self-selecting within environments, and we've spoken about parenting quite a lot. Um, I've got some very clever friends. They're putting their children through something called the 11 plus, and I'll just kind of spell it out for those who aren't in the UK. Rob, I'm aware that you'll know what this is, but the 11 plus is an exam that people sit within the UK. It kind of enables them to get into certain kind of higher functioning or higher academic schools. You can also kind of usually pay if they don't pass to get into these schools as well. Although some schools only accept children based on the results of the 11 plus. It's free to take an 11 plus, and many parents spend 2 years worth of cramming to get their children to answer questions in the right environment, in the right way, getting them used to sort of like hall examination conditions so they can take these tests to hopefully get into the best schools, because these best schools obviously produce the best Ofsted results, and basically the best results against GCSEs and things like this, which again, Ofsted is a body that kind of accredits schools or
Hmm.
gives schools ratings, and then the GCSEs are the exams that students take when they're 16, just to kind of spell it out for those who aren't in the UK. So your point in the book, Robert, was absolutely fantastic when it spoke about kind of why people might be getting the sort of scores they are getting when they go to these sorts of schools, based
Exactly.
on the self-selection that's going on from the pupil and also the parent. So I would love to throw it back to you to kind of, round that one off for us.
Yeah. It's such an important point in the UK, that parents, it's not just getting tutors. People move house to get into the catchment area of a so-called better school. And you can move across the street and pay 15, 20% more for a house because it's in this better school district. So this is a correlation. Kids who go to those better schools get better GCSE results. But that's a correlation. Again, it's you think, well, yeah, but those are better schools. They have more resources and everything. But you have to ask, you know, how much, first of all, about the selection bias, because what I think is happening is that you're selecting the best kids for those schools. And in fact, I know because I have a grandson going to one of those schools now, if you don't continue to get good grades, you're out. So it's all this what's is it Lockhart that once a predictor becomes a criterion, it's no longer a good predictor. So people are gaming it. Like these high stake tests. That first problem you mentioned, you get tutors, you go through exam situations. In a way, it's sort of like cheating, isn't it? I mean, you're getting advantages not about knowledge or anything like that. It's about the test taking. And I know that's the reality, and parents have to do it. I'm not blaming them for it. But what's important is to realize it doesn't make much difference. Even that doesn't make much difference. And we've shown that by showing that, DNA, we can actually predict GCSE scores with DNA better than any other behavioral trait. We can explain 15% of the variance right now today in the UK. And the neat thing about DNA prediction is you can do that at birth. You can do it from very early in life. That's why medicine is totally moving towards predicting and preventing using DNA as the best early warning system we have. Rather than waiting until someone has a heart attack, you can predict it. So we can predict 50%, 60%, say, of the variance. Well, 60% of the variance of GCSE scores is heritable. And today, with DNA alone, we can explain about a third of that, 15% of the total variance we can predict. Now, people say, well, that's only 15%. But people don't realize, because they don't ask the question, how much, what's the effect size of these other things? Like, what's the effect size of school quality ratings as rated by Ofsted? That's you mentioned that's the group that comes out every few years to schools and gives them ratings, and that is the school league table that parents base their plans on because it's correlated. One of the factors in it is how well the kids do in GCSE, but it's all kind of circular. But even accepting all of that, how much of the variance in GCSE scores is explained by these Ofsted ratings of school quality? 50% on DNA? Is it 25%? Nope. Is it 15%? Nope. 10%? Nope. 5%? Nope. 4% of the variance in GCSE scores is determined by the entire range of Ofsted ratings. And then you know that kids aren't randomly assigned to schools. So if you just correct for socioeconomic status, that goes down to 1%. Now, for your kid, you say, well, I'll play the odds. I'll do anything that helps. But there's cost to all of this. I think some kids are getting turned off to school. The pressure of these high stakes exams. These are the most tested kids in the world, these UK kids. And what is that doing for our educational system? I don't think it's good. And what we need to instill is more of a love of learning rather than test taking. I mean, just to give you one example of what really pisses me off is I have this, one of my granddaughters was, very attractive and she was being courted for modeling and all of that sort of thing, but she really liked science. And she got turned off to science because she had this biology teacher where she would just say, well, my grandfather does the genetics. And the teacher would several times say, don't worry about that. It won't be on the exam. I mean, don't you think a teacher ought to be taken out back and shot if they say that? It says this isn't about learning. This is about playing a game, getting good scores on these tests, and something's got to change there. And I think there are signs that things might be changing. But it, anyway, sorry to get on the soapbox again.
No, I absolutely agree. I really struggle. I mean, my eldest is very academic. My youngest is also academic, but just doesn't take to things like reading or writing or maths as instinctively, I guess. And it's really interesting when we go for a parents' evening. They'll kind of say, well, here's our checklist, and we want category 3, which is perfect, to be ticked. Currently, your child is in between categories 1 and 2, depending on various things, whether it be maths, English, etc. So we need to bring them up to category 3. And I'm like, but are they enjoying school? Do they have friends? Are they learning? Like, these are the things that are actually really, really important. But they aren't for them. They
Exactly.
want to make sure that all the sort of ticks are within section 3. And if they are, then great. The kid could be miserable. They don't care as long as they get in their ticks, which is infuriating, to say the
Yeah,
least.
I couldn't agree more. Or when you go to one of these expensive schools where it's a fee-paying school, I was shocked.
Mm.
I resisted it a lot, but my grandson lived in an area that the schools were just so bad. He tried them, but he was getting beaten up, and I mean, it was just such a horrible experience. I had to finally agree to pay 30,000 a year or to help pay that, for him to go. But then I found out, like you were saying, if they don't look good at these parent-teacher conferences, it's sort of on you to get these expensive tutors who will do all this extra work. You think, what are we paying all this money for then? So it is. I'm so glad I don't have. Well, I've got grandchildren to worry about, but I'm um, sympathetic with you with the having to deal with this stuff. You're right at the beginning of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, good
yeah.
luck.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. If you enjoyed this clip, head on over to Locals to watch the full conversation right now. Supporters can access the video version, and everyone can freely listen to the audio-only version of the conversation. If you're on YouTube or Rumble, please like, subscribe, and then hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a new episode. I'll catch you next time. Cheers.